Good morning, all. This is Kurt Cathy with 5 hacking tips. I took a little break last week. We did a couple of upgrades to the home studio and hopefully to improve our delivery a little more. Today I wanted to cover network discovery with NMAP. One of the tools, it's like the Swiss Army knife for hacking, particularly when you're trying to gather information on a network or on a host, a particular host. And today I wanted to cover a couple of things with NMAP. It'll be one of a couple, I think, at least, of some things, a series related to network enumeration, particularly with NMAP, or using NMAP and other tools like the Go programming language, or just other things that they work with in order to do some DNS digging, and then from that take those DNS subdomains and put those into NMAP automatically for enumeration. So let's cover that. Starting with here, but starting with here, I gotta get that up. Starting with basically finding all of the IP addresses on a network. This is something that you see quite often with you go into a lab, for example, at offensive security, and they'll give you basically a class C IP and say find all of the hosts on this IP or on this network. So the very first command right there, sudo nmap -sp, is basically where you just do a ping sweep of everything on that network. And I'll show you down here, is basically, I connected on Hack the Box and found out what the network was. And right here, I ran that very first command, and it gave me the basically a list of the hosts that are, let me pull this over, a list of the hosts that are running on that subnet. Now, by the way, Hack the Box does not condone this, so don't do this very often. I think maybe a ping sweep would be okay, but don't go looking into other boxes or scanning versions, doing version scans and OS scans on other boxes that you have not started up, or that you're not, they're not an instance that you're looking at. And this is probably even stretching it, just to give you an idea. People are very particular about that. And then the other one, the next one is actually a little deeper. So we know that we've been given an IP, or we want to target a particular IP address. So one way to do that is to get in here, is to do basically what this next one is, and it's sudo nmap -s -p. That's a 0, by the way. That's -p0. And then -sv is version scan. -ss is syn scan. So here's another thing that I want to recommend, is the guy that developed NMAP. His name's Fyodor. He wrote this book, and he does update it with the different versions of NMAP. In fact, the NMAP project basically produces this book, and you can buy the book online. You can buy it. I think I picked this up at Amazon. It's one of the books in my toolbox that I refer to quite often, consistently, if I want to find a particular NMAP script, or I need to look up what a flag means or something like that. It's invaluable. But if you do go through the book like I have, and I sometimes I'll do a fresh read of it, it proves to be an invaluable tool, especially when you're doing CTF or any kind of lab work, or just regular penetration testing, where you've got to be looking at networks quite regularly. So that's basically how I know what all these flags mean. Minus capital O, that's OS version scan. So you do another scan there. So this does a version scan on the services that are running. This does an OS scan on the target. So to show on the other side down here where I did run this against that box that was assigned to me, I think this is in the Dante area under Simple Mind, I think is the name of the box. But since I did an OS version scan or an OS scan, I did a version scan, certain things about the protocols came out. It's OpenSSH running 7.6 P1 on Ubuntu, obviously. So we know this is a Linux box just by running that particular scan. And then it comes up with other percentage of likelihood of it being a particular OS, and it lists those up for us. And then it shows how far along on the network it is. It shows a couple hops there. So that is this this command, or this Nmap command. Another really handy one is, especially if you're in a lab environment, or even like in a company environment, and you want to know on a particular subnet how many Linux and how many Windows boxes you have. This can very easily be done with this command, and it looks very long. Here, let me highlight it so that you can see it. But I mean, if you look at this, here, let me bust out of here. If you look at this command, I mean, it's rather long. It goes right here, all the way up to here, up to this last quote. And if you look at that, and what I basically did was I copy and pasted it and I ran it. It doesn't work in certain environments, because in certain environments, it will you will have like IDS or IPS active in the environment that won't like allow an OS scan, or it'll detect that kind of scan. So you have to double check for that. I didn't manage to get this to run completely successfully, except in my house, and it came up basically with all the Linux or all the Windows boxes that are running on my desktop here. Because I have my virtual machines, so no Linux shows up. In fact, all of my Linux is in a virtual machine. And then you can do, this includes the -F option to make it a faster scan of the top 100 popular ports. But I got to warn you, is when you do these aggressive scans, they're very noisy. So you can do the same, to enumerate a network host. I did it with a single IP to target a host. But if you do it against a whole subnet, it's very noisy and it's going to show up in alerts. So if it is a targeted thing where you don't want to set off alarms, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend going a little more systematically, or putting pauses in a script and running it, and then walking away, getting a cup of coffee and coming back. If you want to look for like all of the port 80 that's open on a subnet, this is a way to do it with the -T, and then you say -P, and you can just put a comma delimited list of ports in here. It lists the ports that you want to look for particularly. And then another really stealthy thing that I found that works most of the time, not all the time, is to put a -D option and put another IP, but the IP has to be running. It has to be an existing IP that is active, that will bounce off some pings or react to some kind of a scan. And I found that if you combine this decoy option with this option, that it gives not less reliable results, but it's less successful than if you don't include the decoy for whatever reason. It could be my Nmap skills. Like I said, I mean, there is a whole book written about it. So like, I mean, there's a lot there as far as the tool is concerned. That about does it for today, for part 1 anyways. And the next one in network enumeration 2, I'm going to go into basically enumerating networks. So if a client is a pen tester, gives you a top level domain, you can go from there, find all the subdomains, and find all of the services running on those subdomains. Apologies for the graspy voice today. I mean, hey, you got to do it when you got to do it. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later. Take care.